Hi.
Howdy.
Welcome to Hugo Girl, a podcast in which we read and talk about Hugo award-winning books and other stuff too. I am Amy.
I'm Lori.
I'm Haley.
Do we have any followers, comments, reviews, corrections, corners?
Yep. We got a fun comment that I meant to mention last month, and then I don't know why I didn't. But a friend of the show, Ed Moreland, recommended via Blue Sky a podcast called Backlisted, and they did an episode about Moby Dick, which they released on Christmas Eve, also known as December 24th. And it was really good. It was really fun. Thank you, Ed. And if you like Moby Dick, I highly recommend it. And if you don't like Moby Dick, I also recommend it because maybe it'll get you to read it. And one of the guests said something that stuck with me. She said, regarding books, if you hated something, it's acted on you. And that might be relevant to today's discussion, I'm just saying. And another thing I wanted to mention is that we have two friends who have won awards recently.
Good job, friends.
Friend of the show, Espana Sheriff, won the Rotzler Award for her fan art. And that is an award presented each year for wonder working with graphic art and amateur publications of the science fiction community. And coincidentally, John Coxon, Espana's husband, won the Fowler Award, which is an award for doing science.
I think that makes them a power couple.
I think it definitely makes them a power
Good job,
couple.
guys.
Doing their art and science.
It's official.
They are the arts and sciences.
Physics science too, right?
Yeah, space physics.
You are a liberal art.
Guess we know who our next science friend guest is.
Yay!
So congratulations to those two.
Wait, what kind of science does John do?
Astrophysics?
So the easy kind.
Yeah.
Super easy.
Yeah, I could definitely do it. In fact, I'm thinking
I'm doing
making
it all.
a change.
I do it all the time.
Yeah.
I got out my Starry Sky app the other day.
Oh, you're already doing
to
it.
identify Venus and Jupiter, and so I was definitely doing astrophysics.
Another thing that I can definitely do is incredible art. Definitely.
Oh, me too. Like nobody, like if anybody on the planet knows how to draw, it's me.
If I draw
So
a
good at
face,
it.
it's going to have two eyes and a nose toward the middle somewhere.
There was 12 months in the pandemic when every single season had a Hugo Girl change in the logo.
That's true.
You did
That's
a
art,
PowerPoint,
baby.
right?
That's art.
My PowerPoint.
That's art.
My PowerPoint logo is this fan art. I guess it kind of is.
That's like saying I cooked dinner in the VCR.
Who recommended or requested this book? Fully nobody. Everyone says it's terrible.
They were right.
They were right. And a little sort of a correction corner. Nominations for Hugo's should open soon, and I don't know if we've said often enough, since people may not listen to every episode, that we are eligible for Best Fan Cast, and we are not recused because of the Chengdu shit show. And if you want to read more about that, you can visit hugogirlpodcast.com to see what stuff we did last year and why we decided to not recuse. End of housekeeping.
Perfect. Go support your local feminist podcast.
Yeah, do that.
So, The Wanderer was definitely a book we read.
We read a book.
It's a book we have now read. It's by Fritz Lieber.
I think it's Liber is what I
Liber?
usually hear people say.
It was published as a paperback original by Ballantine. Thank you, Wikipedia. It won the 1965 Hugo for Best Novel. It was apparently the first novel to win the Hugo Award without previously being published as a hardcover or appearing in some form of genre magazine.
Neat.
I liked this quote by somebody. "This is a terrible book, and yet it won a Hugo. You might ask, what the helling hell, Hugo voters of 1965? And I did find the breakdown of the votes, and I think it's kind of relevant.
I have that too.
52 people voted for this book.
It's a very small, less than 200 people.
It beat out Davy by Edgar Pangborn by 4 votes. And the rest of the votes were like 34, 26. No award got 14. So, take that as you will.
Did they say why, or was it just a slow year for books?
Unknown. Maybe someone can chime in.
Joe Walton has not even read this
Joe
book.
Walton,
I
that's in
searched
my
for
notes. That is in my notes. I have a lot of things to say
If
about
Joe hasn't read it, the vibes are
this.
off.
She had it in her hot little hands and then opted not to read it after reading the comments on her own blog.
What's interesting is that me and Joe usually differ on our likings of books, so I wonder if that means she would like this one.
I don't know, man. Also, 2 of the nominees for 1965 had Catgirls, The Wanderer, and The Planet Buyer.
It was sexy
Why?
stuff. We had
Cordwainer
Jane
Smith.
Fonda.
You must have read the James Nichol blog.
I sure did. And I have some quotes from him. I sure did. Okay, so I'm going to attempt this plot summary. In a future that is exactly like 1964, a planet appears in the sky and starts to mine our moon. The planet, called the Wanderer, is very huge, which wreaks havoc on Earth's tides, causing mass destruction, mayhem, and general consternation. We find out eventually that the Wanderer is inhabited by alien subversives who are escaping the oppressive intergalactic community, which is apparently run by total squares. They just want to roam around and do the free love thing and not have to answer to anyone, and to do this, they need to use our moon for fuel. The majority of the book follows a couple of groups of people as they navigate the impacts on Earth and space. One group is the Saucer Students, who are UFO enthusiasts caught on a beach when the Wanderer shows up. It is completely unclear how many there are, but there are at least 8, including Doc, Turban, Beardy, the Little Man, Ramrod and his 2 wives, and Margot Gellhorn.
Don't forget that the 2 wives are
Fat
the
and
thin
thin.
woman and the fat woman.
Oh, we're getting there. The Saucer Students go on a road trip, kill some people, and some of them have sex in the hills outside LA. Barbara Katz is hunting millionaires on a beach in Florida when the Wanderer shows up. She manages to nab one named Knowles K. Kettering III, who is spying on her through a telescope.
Knowles K. Kettering, by the way. If you
KKK.
hear Knowles, you may not immediately think his name is KKK.
His name is KKK.
And they refer to him.
Yeah. Oh, we're getting there. Come on, guys.
More on that later.
We're jumping ahead. She inexplicably calls him Dad and spins the novel with him and his staff, a group of people who rightfully call Knowles KKK since he is some sort of KKK Grand Wizard.
Yeah.
They all try to drive and then boat out of Florida. No one has sex, but there is a species of sex doll involved somehow. Some sort of Barbie.
It's like hearing a weird dream I had once.
KKK eventually dies, and Barbara and the staff members live, and that is the best thing that happens to them. Sally and Jake are 2 New Yorkers who are gadding about town, being young and carefree. They have sex on a roller coaster. They hole up in a penthouse apartment and write a play and watch the flood and fret. Mm-hmm. General Spike Stevens and Colonel Mabel Wallingford.
Ooh, she got everybody on this list.
I didn't actually. I'm leaving out quite a few at the end here.
Hopefully not my favorite.
They are in an underground military bunker working as mission control for the moon program. They have sex while choking each other while bunker floods and then they drown.
And one's a lesbian.
With a capital L. She is actually from Lesbos. That's
I
all
am
it means.
a capital L lesbian, she says. Then there's Paul Hagbolt. He gets nabbed by a jellicle cat who calls herself Tigerishka. He gets nabbed with a cat named Meow, who I think is the hero of the novel. The other hero is Ragnarok, a dog named Ragnarok, R.I.P. Paul and Tigerishka have sex, even though she's a cat. Or maybe they have sex. It's unclear. Don Merriam is on the moon being dashing. He ends up hanging out on the Wanderer for most of the book. He does not have any sex. Others include a man sailing for Boston in the open ocean, a boat of mutineers, possibly a Vietnamese treasure hunter named Bagong Bung, 3 stoners in New York. I mean, there's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot is what I'm saying. Some of them have sex also.
I like that the stoners are called the Weed Brothers.
Weed Brothers.
And they're on pot, quote unquote.
And when he writes their sections, it's like grand literature. The Weed Brothers, Sally Forth, and they.
Oh, and the Black Dahlia killer shows up.
Oh,
The Wanderer eventually gets found and attacked by the Stranger, another planet that appears. After they fight, they both leave. We don't have a moon anymore, and apparently that's okay. The end.
This is like a Ryan Murphy script. This is American Horror Story.
Like it's hard to plot this book because it's like there's a billion people in it, and like all these things are happening that are all not that exciting.
So fucking boring.
It's so boring.
It is officially the horniest Hugo we've ever read.
Good night. It sure is. That goes right into the goodies from Goodreads.
Yep.
By the way, because one of mine was, it smelled fresh and sexy at the time. What you got?
Erica gave it 2 stars, and I just pulled one of my favorite sentences from her paragraph-long review that said, I could do a long rant about everything that I hated about this book, but honestly, I'd rather hurry up and jump into another book to wash this one away, and that's exactly how I felt. I got a pile of books when I went to Savannah, and I was like, I just want to read the Oregon Trail book, please.
I've got Ellen gave it 2 stars and said only this. Lots of characters to sort out. And Karen gave it 2 stars and said, I found I could not suspend my disbelief for this 1965 Hugo-winning sci-fi novel. No one, No one takes a cat in a convertible to watch a lunar eclipse.
That's what I was thinking the whole time. Why is this cat there?
Aliens and spaceships, no problem. But not the way these people trek this cat everywhere during the apocalypse. This is the hill I will die on.
Nothing made me more anxious than the fate of Meow. I was like, this cat is going to run away. She's going to, I don't know what's, like, they're just tromping all over the beach with this cat. They go to a military outpost with the cat.
The fact that Meow tolerated all of that makes me feel like she would have liked to come home to Margot. She must have really liked Margot.
She's one of those really cool Instagram cats, I think, that are just chill. They don't care about anything. She must be.
Oof.
Reminds me of the cat in A Quiet Place Day One. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it yet, no.
It's fantastic. Lupita Nyong'o has a cat in it. Oh.
Son.
He's like, why are you talking about all these cats?
This is a dog podcast.
Which reminds me of another quote that I saw on the internet, which is, there's a long tradition of cat people in sci-fi, not so much about dog people. But my favorite review of this book was from Wikipedia, and all it said was Lieber likes cats.
Yeah. He does like cats. And I Googled, does Lieber really like cats? And it said that he really likes cats.
He really likes cats.
Cats are people.
I do like it when a man likes a cat, so.
Me too.
Also, this is my favorite thing that I found on Goodreads. It's a photograph of the guy with the hair from the History Channel, and it just says Tides.
That's the Ancient Aliens guys, right?
We'll put that on a visual medium at some point so people can see it. Okay, guys. Let's talk about this book.
Okay.
The one thing he got right is that there is a U.S. Space Force now.
That's true. And he talked about communications being extremely boring and also extremely fear-inducing, which I feel like might describe the now times as well.
That's true.
Yeah. So, okay. I don't even know where to start with this
I was saying
thing.
how I don't think there's a lot of college thoughts in this. It's more just like, and this was funny.
Well, I think he has buried some thoughts in here. Some of the passages are okay. Like, somebody wrote that they thought he wrote like he was hitting his deadline all the time. And that's kind of how I felt also. Like, he writes it out, doesn't have time to edit, and that's where we are. But, go ahead.
The thing that drives me nuts about reading his work is that most of this book was like having my teeth cleaned. And some of it was like getting a crown or a root canal. But getting my teeth cleaned, I mean, like, this is kind of boring, but I could deal with it. And then, like, I would say the back third of it was just nightmarish to get through. But he sometimes writes such beautiful sentences.
Sometimes
And I
it's great.
have a couple of examples if you'll indulge me.
Yes, please.
From his lonely mesa, Asa Holcomb saw the moon shake as if a fanfare were being blown through the cosmos. Then a great golden and purple gateway 4 times as wide as the moon opened in the heavens there, pushing the blackness aside, and Asa strained eagerly toward it, and his heart swelled with wonder and majesty of it, and his aorta tore all the way, and he died. I was just like, oh my God, I'm right there. I just died with him.
That guy was great, and then he was dead.
It was so good. It was so poignant. And if you haven't read it and you're just listening for shits and giggles, he hiked. I think he had some health problems. He knew about it. He hiked up to this mesa to see stuff going on. And then he like felt a little chest pain and he was like, I better lay down until this passes. And then he died. But he died like watching this incredible phenomenon in space. And it's like, well, what a way to go.
Some of the stuff Tigerishka says too is pretty cool. And then some of the things that happen to Don when he's escaping the moon are described pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, there's some Melvillian sentences that are very pretty.
He tries to be super Melvillian because he doesn't know how to use an adverb.
He found himself thinking of how safe the earth had swung in all its loneliness for millions of years, like a house to which no stranger ever comes, and of how precarious its isolation had really always been.
It's great.
That is fucking beautiful.
Well, and that's the frustrating part is that he could have written a book that was like that.
He could have.
One of the reviewers said, Fritz, honey, you have so much going for you. It's a shame you are incapable of writing a decent female character. And I feel like that about a lot of his book. He has so much going for him. He's obviously a guy who cares about a turn of phrase. He's got a good idea, but he just doesn't know when to stop, I guess.
I think he was trying to be funny in this book. I'm 100% convinced.
Oh, yeah. It's someone called it a romp with tragedy in the background.
A romp.
To me, it was like watching a trailer for a disaster movie, but reading it. And then it was also kind of like if Michael Bay wrote a book, like
he kind of started the whole disaster like thing. Like this wasn't a thing that happened when he wrote this book. So he's got that to his credit. And he also this multiple point of view thing wasn't exactly like well known at the time. So I mean, he was trying something. Points for trying stuff.
Yeah.
For sure. Actually, I actually looked up all the 5-star reviews because I was like genuinely curious, like what people liked about this book. And I'm curious what you guys think. Tigerishka's soliloquy describing her starfaring rebels in the running battle with their dystopian pursuers is mesmerizing.
I fucking hated that chapter. I said out loud to Kevin, I said, here I am at chapter 36, which is nothing but a angry libertarian screed from a space cat woman. And the thing that drives me nuts about it, which is maybe it's just her as a character, because I do think to a degree the book disagrees with her. She premises everything on basically that if a government cares about the meek, that necessarily engenders a police state, and I don't think that's true. So she says that her people want the right to take a chance, the right to suffer, the right to be unwise, the right to die. And I was like, she definitely would not have worn a mask. These aims are hateful to the government, which values every frightened mouse and falling sparrow as equal to a tiger burning bright. That made me so mad. I was like, those things are not necessarily companions. You could have a government that cares about people and takes care of people who need help and also isn't a police state.
I think, Fritz Lieber seemed like he was generally just not into government interference of any kind.
Fritz libertarian.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of the zeitgeist of the mid to late 60s. It's social norms were being upended. I think he just wrote a poor backstory for this Catwoman.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't decide if he was trying to make her a hippie.
Yeah.
Or a libertarian. It was odd to me. They showed up in this basically tie-dyed hippie wagon. And then,
it is tie-dye.
And then they were like, we're trying to escape the man. And then, but also... they don't give a crap about the little guy.
An entire planet-sized society. They can't all be hippy-dippies. Someone's got to run the water plant.
No one cared about, what do you call it? Racial, none of the life forms seem to keep racial privacy on this planet.
Oh, so they're not racist?
They just mixed.
Oh, I just meant
they just mixed together.
A whole planet has to have someone who works at the water plant, though.
Oh, well, yeah, that's why they had to steal the moon, right?
Yeah.
They needed
but everybody on the Wanderer, I think, by definition, is one of them. Is a person who doesn't want to care about anybody.
Yeah, but to be, I guess. But you can't uphold the ideals they're talking about because you are going to have striated society.
Somebody's got to be a square who has to go to work and keep the train.
Let's note that not everybody was on the saucer with Tigerishka. She flew around with her flowers and her captive man monkey and did whatever the fuck she wanted. Another thing people liked was just fan service, it seemed like, in general. There's a lot of references.
Women that like sci-fi?
What? There's a lot of references to Heinlein and what science fiction does in society. And the entire saucer student group seems like basically a science fiction fan club.
You think Joe Walton would like that aspect of it?
I did. Well, she hasn't
read it. So she wouldn't know.
Exactly.
I thought it was funny when he said, in a situation like this, science fiction is our only guide.
Yeah, there's lots of sweet, cute things about sci-fi.
And a lot of it was kind of a wink to the fans, I think, which at least one guy that I read, I think it might have been Nichols, said that he thinks that's why it won because people were like, that's me. He's talking to me.
Yeah, and 56 people were like, I love it.
Someone else said, the novel really is a quick and fun dance around the tidal effects of the Earth getting a new moon by way of hyperspace, which is in all caps and fun. I mean, the tidal thing... He clearly put a lot of thought into it.
It's interesting.
And then he just abandoned it at the end, though, because if we don't have a moon or our moon is cracked in half, that's going to have an effect.
Well, we won't have any lunar tides, Lori, but we will have solar tides.
That's right.
Which, it's just a write-off at the end, but some people were like, that's a cool idea. Nobody, he put real science into that. Maybe. I don't know. Again, these are I'm trying to find the good before we talk about the bad.
The tide will be 80 times.
So much water.
80 times.
This will eventually be presaged in Seven Eves by Neil Stephenson when the moon explodes. So,
I think that was all the good stuff.
Amy, do you remember when we saw Moonfall?
I thought about Moonfall so many times when I was reading this book. If you guys have not seen Moonfall, I highly recommend it.
I haven't seen Moonfall.
The moon's going to hit the Earth, Lori.
It's just a big disaster movie.
And they got to run away from it, but there's nowhere to go.
There's no Weed Brothers, though. So.
Oh, Arab Jones.
This book made me think of Spin, Station 11, no disrespect, but the multiple points of view in the apocalypse, Station 11.
Sure.
And then the three-body problem, which also...
It gets a mention.
At the end.
Also, there's a boat called the Endurance.
Yeah.
Which we love.
Yes, I did love that.
With a waste of a character named Wolf Loner who does absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
No, man.
What? He must have
was
had
in a
a
boat.
word count. He was just well, On the other side of the Atlantic, there was Wolf, and he didn't really know anything was even going on. He just thought, oh, it's a little choppy.
And the drunk poet who just had like monologues to the liquor bottles.
Is that the guy who met Vera?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes. He wanted his own special friend, and he found one sitting in the mud.
It became very quickly apparent how, like, the parts you could skim.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I started skimming a lot. I'm not a big skimmer as a general rule.
It's really hard to reward yourself with reading passages that don't contribute to the plot and aren't beautiful.
Yeah, there was a part I skimmed, and it was when Dawn was kind of floating around before he had been intercepted by the Wanderer's saucers. And then they do intercept him, and they're escorting him, if you can call it that, to the Wanderer. And there's just pages and pages and pages devoted to the acceleration. The acceleration, he's like, oh, we're going too fast. I'm not going to be able to stop. And then he's like, oh, what kind of jets they got on this boat? And just like slow down without having to reverse the jets or whatever. And I mean, it was just pages and pages and pages.
He had both soft and hard science in there, but he didn't know when to use either one and when to stop using it when he got started. Also the adverbs.
It's so hard to criticize this book because he knows how to write, but he just was like, I'm going to have fun with this one. And that's kind of like a slap in the face a little bit.
Well, I mean, I'm all about someone having fun with their book and like trying whatever it is they want to try, but it just wasn't very cohesive.
Yeah.
And
or make it more fun. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, I guess if you were reading this in 1964 and you were a 17-year-old boy, you'd probably eat it the fuck up, you know? Like,
Oh yeah, there's boobs.
you would love it. Yeah. And it's like sexy and there's actual sex in it, not just hints. And, you know, cat people are cool and hyperspace. And
The idea, as we've said so many times, good idea, bad execution, but this is a dramatically bad execution.
Yeah.
But the idea, like if you just boil it down to a sentence, like libertarian cat people from space come crack the moon in half, like that's pretty cool.
new.
What did James Nichols said? Fritz Lieber's 1964 The Wanderer is about hollow planets filled with cat girls who want to steal the moon. It's like, yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, it does.
Sign me up. And the beginning of it, I actually didn't mind the beginning of it. I was like,
Yeah.
I was into it for the first like 50 pages or so, probably.
Yeah, I would say the first third I was like, this is fine.
Yeah.
And in the middle third I was like, okay. And then the last third I was like, when will it stop?
It just dragged on and on and on.
I mean, it would be even a palatable novella, I think.
Sure.
Because the idea, again, is interesting.
Yeah.
Give me a horny cat girl, but like, he calls the moon purple and yellow 1,000 times.
That's The Wanderer.
And the drawings
Haley.
didn't go anywhere. Like,
They don't look like the things they described.
I thought that the drawings were
The drawings.
added something, but they didn't. I really think it was like a page count. Oh, I kept track of the things that people see in the shapes on the Wanderer. It's not a big list, but I liked it. A giant duck, a penguin, and a dinosaur.
And those are all pretty similar.
Yeah, it was the same shape.
Have you ever masturbated a lower life form, guys?
No.
Well, so that means maybe they didn't have, they didn't have P and CV sex.
Well, that's right. Like the sex between the Catwoman and the human man
Paul.
was, yeah, possibly not anatomically possible.
It's 10% love.
10% love and
What was the
90%.
other
90%. I'm gonna wreck your face with my claws.
Also, was she purple or green or purple and green?
She was very clearly purple and green, Haley.
A
She
purple
had,
and green
She had
tabby.
lotus eyes.
Oh, the eyes were really cool.
Well, eyes actually were described pretty cool.
I was picturing her as the Taylor Swift from Cats.
I like how
I kept
she
thinking
steals
about
me out and thinks that's the higher life form. I'm like, yes, ma'am.
Oh, that was so funny. So, again, for those who may not have read it, Tiger Rishka can hear your thoughts and riffle through your mind, and she hears Paul's thoughts, but she thinks that she's hearing Meow the cat and that Paul is Meow's pet. So she takes both of them, and then she's hearing Paul's thoughts and responding out loud to the cat, which is very funny.
Objectively funny.
Objectively
And
funny.
sometimes she speaks in broken English and sometimes she doesn't.
And then she very, basically says to Paul, you treat me out like pet? Jail for 1,000 years.
No try.
Jail for a mother.
She's speaking in like meme slang.
It's so funny.
I think is she doing that to be like, I'm talking to you like you're not very smart?
Yes, that's what my impression was.
Yeah.
It's not,
Because then she can obviously wax poetic about deep philosophical issues
Sure can.
with no problem.
She's like, for pages and pages and pages, she's like, a cab,
yeah.
which is fine. And also, we can care about the frightened mouse or the tiny sparrow.
All or nothing. All or nothing.
It's all just wokeism. Who boy, should we talk about the women? Now that we're talking about Tigerishka.
I want to say that the weird thing about him is that he writes some really misogynist stuff, but ultimately I think like the women are often very insightful, and I think that the men come across looking really dumb,
Yes.
and the women know it. And I'm not 100% sure what he's getting at.
Yeah, like the women oddly have a lot of agency. They do some cool stuff.
He
like,
has women, which is something.
I mean, I don't know. I'm with you. Yeah, that's basically was my thought too, Laurie. I don't know what to do with it because it's so silly.
He's so, yeah, it's just goofy. Like, I don't think this is like a real, like, I don't know. It doesn't even seem like real sci-fi to me. It seems like a joke book. Like Dune comes out the next year, and while I have my issues with Dune, like it's like two different genres of science fiction.
Yeah, it totally is.
I read it came out right after The Moon is a Harsh Mistress and like right before Dune, basically, or something like that.
And then like Ursula Le Guin comes along a couple years later, so it's like it's the same world we're living in.
There's a part that was my feminist favorite, but I think it fits here, where Hunter, he's kind of dragging Margot, and this is to my point about like, I think that the female characters are in a lot of ways better than the male characters. Hunter's kind of dragging Margot. He's trying to cut her down. He's telling her she's like this selfish harpy and you just dominate Paul and Dawn and blah, blah, blah. And he's like on this weird Freudian psychoanalytic tear. And she's just not paying attention to him. She's doing her own thing. And she just goes, interesting. And then he goes on for another paragraph and she goes, very interesting. I actually laughed out loud. It reminded me of the, I can't remember which of the new Star Wars movies it is, but Chewbacca is like back to safety and a doctor is seeing to him and he's telling her everything that he's been through. And the doctor goes, that sounds very scary. You must be very brave. So he has these things that he's good at, and he realizes that when men are acting like this, they're not worth attention and they should be dismissed. But then, of course, at the end, Margot's in love with Hunter, and then he's like, I don't know, I got this wife I got to get back to.
That's one of my. I can't decide if I made that my misogynist movie. I can't remember, but basically, he's like, Margot got him, and now he had to fit his life to his conquest. Which was just like, come on, man.
Yeah. Well, there's also the psychological effects of thinking the world is ending. And then he's like,
but he wore her down. And then he was like,
oh, yeah.
Well, guess now I got to deal with her.
And he was like being mean to her about her pre-existing relationship with Dawn and Paul. And it's like, I have
and he has a wife.
Yeah.
I have no objection to them being like, the sky is literally falling. Let's go have sex in a field. I am fine with that. I am fine that he asked for that. I'm fine that she was like, yeah, let's go have sex in a field. But then, like, Dawn and Paul kind of show back up, and he's, like, jealous of them. But then he's also like, my wife. It's like, what do you want, man?
Do you think, because he puts the scene in there where Hunter is like, let's have sex. And she's like, no. And he's like, you're a bitch. Yeah. And it was like, I don't know if he just accidentally perfectly captured that dynamic or not. Because you get, I mean,
it's like he's been on the ass.
Like some dude hits on you and you're like, thank you, no thank you. And he's like, what are you, some kind of lesbian? What are you, a bitch? I mean, that's like the response you get. Like 2 minutes ago, you wanted to date me.
I think occasionally about this time a guy hit on me in a parking lot. And I think it was like one of those like, hey, girl, are you married? And I was just like, yes. And this was a long time ago. And he goes, you got a man, I got a plan.
You know what? I love a go-getter.
I know. You can't even be mad about it. But yeah, it is like that where, oh yeah, I thought 5 seconds ago you liked me. And then I'm like, no, thank you.
One time I said no to a guy and he called me a slut. I was like, I just said no.
Oh my slut. You hurt his feelings, Amy. He wanted it.
A slut would say that.
One thing I definitely did, or two things I think he does not get a pass for are the several times women are threatened with rape, and then give in. And then one of the first things we learn about every single character, every female character, is what she looks like. And we don't get a lot of that with the men, except for we know one has a beard.
Well, yeah.
And one's short king.
Ramrod, I guess. Yeah.
But like the first thing we learn about Sally is that she's a size 8. We know how slender Tigerishka is.
If they only knew in the past that size 8 would be large in the future.
And then we have a fat woman, thin woman.
Yeah. Lesbian.
Okay.
Literally only called the fat woman.
I looked up how many times and when we got their names, if I may.
Oh, you may.
We get the fat woman's name, Wanda, for the first time in chapter 9, and she's referred to as the fat woman 11 times. And we get the thin woman's name, Ida, in chapter 17.
I wondered who that was. That's her.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And 19 times she's referred to as the thin woman.
Woman.
And it's like, it's fine to say this woman was fat and this woman was thin. And then you can just be like, well, their names were Wanda and Ida. And then you can use those names.
It's almost like he's not good at characterization.
It's almost as if
It's almost
he doesn't
like
know how to
had-
differentiate between them.
It's almost like he had too many characters and he couldn't keep track of them. I share that problem.
But I do appreciate that Ramad's married to both of them. He is equally in love with them.
And even though he doesn't ever describe Wolf Loner, I know exactly what Wolf Loner looks like. Sleeping in his sailboat crossing the Atlantic.
Once, I can't remember who it was, but one woman was described as coarsely attractive, which was a favorite of mine.
It was the girl on the train who was going to have some sausage and mash for lunch.
coarsely. Sausage.
Oh.
Oh, that's the one he invented the limerick about.
Yes, I have the limerick. I love it so much. Where did I put it? I have it under fantastical food. I'll save it.
Lest you think it's just a prose book, there's also songs.
Oh, the guy. Did either of you listen to the audiobook?
No.
So the guy who was doing the audiobook was very game. And he had a lot of dialect that he attempted, and he had voices for everyone.
Oh, no.
It was like he was doing his best. And one thing he definitely did was actually sing all the songs with nice little melodies that I don't know if he made up or where they came from.
That in books.
But he sang them.
What am I supposed to sing this to?
Well, and it was kind of cute. Yeah. Like the songs were cute, and he did a good job. And he recited that limerick with a ever so slight Irish accent.
Aw.
And it was funny. What do you guys make of Barbara Katz?
I don't understand if the doll that he had was of Barbara or if Barbara coincidentally was dressed like the doll that he already had.
I get the impression that was just his type, and it was funny to Helen, was that her name, or the
Helen or Hester?
Yeah,
Who
one
can
of those
say?
two.
Helen and Hester, and then there's two people named Dawn.
I didn't understand a single part of the Barbara Katz.
Well, let me tell you, Haley. Barbara Katz was wandering along the beach, and she saw a millionaire watching her through his telescope. So she decided to go use his telescope because she's a girl adventurer.
Yeah, to see the moon. That's the last thing I
love
remember.
that she called herself a girl adventurer.
So basically, she uses her wiles to get access to this man's telescope.
Fine.
And then because the Wanderer shows up, they are now into it. They're in for it together, basically. Him and her and the household staff. I did not understand why she kept calling him Dad. That was so confusing to me.
It's confusing.
I do kind of love that Barbara and the staff are in cahoots. And like they have a joke. Like they have an inside joke together, which is basically like, we all know this man is ridiculous, but here we are.
So when they say amongst themselves that they did not realize that he was actually a Klansman, because their big reveal is that he saves his black staff from violence by revealing himself as a high-level Klansman, which is extremely something.
Yeah.
Extremely something.
and
It's a
then-
thing that happened.
And then he just goes back into his sort of semi-coma, which was kind of funny. He wakes up enough to divert danger and then goes back into his little being passed out. And one of them is like, I didn't know old KKK was really a Kluxer. And I just,
Well, one of them said that. I think the other two knew.
well, I paused and I was like, it's impossible that his live-in staff would not know. Like, he's not washing his own robes.
One of the three staffers was definitely portrayed in kind of the same way that, the character name is escaping me, but the Butterfly McQueen character from Gone with the Wind. Like, she's kind of not very bright. And so I feel like, and she might be younger, and I feel like she might not have known.
Yeah.
But the other two, they seemed like they knew. Because they were calling him KKK, and there was definitely a wink and a smile.
Well, his
when they
initials were
Yeah,
KKK, so.
That was the reason they gave, but there was like this, I felt like there was like this moment where they were like,
It's one of those things that you can't even ignore, though. Like, if you jokingly call someone by their name that is a racist organization, yeah.
Yeah, I think they were, I think they knew, but
Yeah.
I think you could read it a lot of ways, probably.
After the end of the whole section, though, I wasn't sure how I was supposed to feel about any of it. I was like, well,
I don't either. But like, was it Benji? Was that his name?
Yeah.
He was very clearly the most capable of, like, way more capable than Knowles was. Like, they were all portrayed pretty stereotypically, but not insultingly, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense or not. Like they
Could have been worse. Yeah.
I mean, it could have been, maybe that's what I mean. It could have been
the
worse.
Bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were definitely intelligent and resourceful and funny, but also I was uncomfortable reading those parts.
Don't listen to the audiobook.
Oh dear.
Imitate those accents.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but like the casual racism in this book is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's believable. I don't mean it's unbelievable.
I mean, written by white men in the 1960s, it makes sense, but
I guess you just get used to not reading that kind of stuff, and then you read it and you're like,
Oh no.
right, this wasn't that long ago.
even when I read things in the 90s, I'm like, oof.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom was alive when this was published. All of our moms were alive when
Yeah,
this
my mom was
published.
20-something when this was published.
But schools were just being integrated, like, so it was fresh on the minds of things, and I can't imagine publishing a book that would have things that are this horrible.
I am very curious to know how average middle class white reader reacted to this at the time in terms of like seeing black characters who, while they're kind of offensive to us today, like were they like, oh, there's black people in here and they do stuff. I just wonder.
I do too, and it's worth mentioning. I think that one of the conceits in this book is that these two white men in space are learning that they're not worth anything to the rest of the intergalactic empire, and like it's a little bit of a come down for them when they figure out that they're not.
They're at the bottom of someone's food chain.
They're at the bottom of the heap.
Yeah. I also wonder how a black reader in 1964 and also now would react to this.
I don't know. I wonder if they'd find it funny that they were calling him KKK and just be like, I don't know, man. I will say Lieber, I learned from Wikipedia that Lieber
I think.
had a friendship and mentorship with Lovecraft, which known white supremacist.
Yeah, that's not
H.P.
good on your
Lovecraft.
anti-racist resume.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know who didn't include racist tropes? Ursula Le Guin.
Thanks,
Correct.
So, just because you live in the midst of a horribly racist world doesn't mean you have to include them in your writing.
Right.
Yeah, it's like trying to excuse slavery by just being like, it was the times. I'm like, no, they were abolitionists. People knew this was wrong.
There were always people objecting to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would like to have a conversation with Fritz to find out if he thought he was being progressive with this stuff.
I think he probably was with the hippy dippy stuff, but not with the race stuff.
And the women stuff, I think he might have been trying. But the race stuff, I think he didn't. I don't even think he tried. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't either. I mean, he tried to.
He failed.
I mean,
we don't know if he tried.
In the sense, I mean, I don't know whether how many points we should give him for like saying this isn't just happening to white people in America. Here's the whole world like reacting to this thing, right? But the other problem is that the people of color are all like, I mean, two of them are criminals.
They're also not point of view characters.
Yeah, he could have also written.
Well, Bagong Bung was.
Oh,
and the
kind of
the guys on pot. The guys on pot.
He's like, I'm on a boat.
Yeah,
I mean, they weren't well developed.
There are no major point of view.
Yeah.
He also didn't have to write them in dialogue that seemed like pidgin English at times. So,
yeah.
Oh well.
Queerness was interesting in this book. There was a little bit.
I guess
There was a little bit. Ramrod had a throuple. They straight up had a throuple. He's married to two women.
Mm-hmm.
That's not queer.
It depends on how the sex happens. It's quite possible that the two wives never,
or just
ever
like
saw
it's
each
two
other.
One wife
heterosexual
cooks
relationships.
and one wife
Yeah,
cleans.
Maybe you're right. Yeah, maybe you're right.
and then there's a lesbian who throws all of her lesbianism out the door.
And she's like the worst example of like what men think of lesbians because she's sitting there like, I had sex with all the women you wanted to have sex with. I'm stealing all the women.
You know that redhead in the typing pool?
That was awful. You're a lesbian, but that's not all I am. And then she proceeds to have some sort of
Strangulation, murder sex.
Yeah. Ryan
Oh,
Murphy.
I liked that she at one point was like, people had told me that I had a strangler's hands.
I underlined that part.
And that every time she looked at him, she thought about it. And then in the end, she gets to strangle him. It was kind of great.
All right, so I was confused at that part too. Did they both die?
They both definitely at least drowned.
Or it was like autoerotic asphyxiation?
I think that's what they were going for, but I imagine it's difficult to time that as the tide is.
Very clearly thought they could time it. She's like, you gotta wait.
Strangler's hands. Oh, they're so pretty.
Also, I'm pretty sure Paul was in love with Dawn, but they just didn't
So
say.
they even said that.
Yeah.
Did they say it out loud?
A couple of times Margot said she thought that his attachment was more to Dawn than to her.
Okay, cool.
And he was just all mixed up. He was like, I don't know.
Bless.
I mean, he was trying to get therapy from the cat. He was like, why am I so mixed up?
it's like, I don't know if I'm into men or women, so I'm just going to be into this cat.
Yeah. Meow.
Yeah, he had polyamory. He acknowledged that homosexuality exists.
I think that RuPaul read this book because one character at one point says, also, love yourself more or you can't like anybody.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not going to love yourself, you're not.
How in the hell are you going to love
How
somebody
are you going to
else?
love somebody else? That's right. Was this the first time that somebody said that maybe humans were insignificant in the grand scheme of space?
Yeah, I have no idea.
I don't
haven't read
either.
every book.
I would be.
You haven't?
I would
be.
ask Joe.
I have read every book. I would say.
Joe has read every book but this one.
That's true.
I would say the earliest book we've read that had that idea.
I don't know. Hard to say.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting though. If that's because I mean I think some of the ideas in this book were new, and that's always something that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
I guess that's all I was wondering.
There's the chase scene with the saucer folks going through like the mountains of LA, presaging LA fires, which have recently happened.
Yes.
It's very prescient to read that.
Lots of
and
LA
very
fires.
sad. But the car scene, it's like a chase scene with all these teenagers, and it's like Fury Road. I imagine.
Oh,
it in my
yeah.
head.
Yeah, and the teenagers were just down there like throwing Molotov cocktails
Just
and having
being
sex.
Yeah.
Who are you even throwing the Molotov cocktails at? I guess they were in a little skirmish with the police.
Yeah.
So-
A-cab.
I think a better version of this book is called On the Beach. Have you ever read it?
No.
So it's a
Oh, I thought you were making a joke.
No, I thought you were no. It's a great book that basically the world finds out we have 5 years to live. Or like there's like a nuclear war coming in 5 years. I haven't read it since high school. But basically it's like, what do you do when you know that society won't last forever? And so we get this in a micro level with, there's a huge fucking moon in the sky. What do? We have sex. We throw Molotov cocktails. We go on a boat ride. But it's just not artfully done, I think. Like, it's more interesting. But also, there's also a David Bowie song called 5 Years, where it's like, what do you do if you have 5 years?
I love that song.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean the people's reactions seemed like that would be what would happen. I mean, some people were stranded by themselves and they were trying to figure it out. The saucer students had to learn how to like figure out where to go with 8 people trying to weigh in, and but they didn't want to break it up the group. I mean, it made sense. I don't know. The saucer students were the ones we spent the most time with. And I still don't feel like I understand any of them.
I was actually a little sad when Doc died.
He threw his little hat up.
Because it was just so abrupt and
Kind of senseless.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is how death is.
Yep.
So when there's a very unsatisfying death in a book, I'm always like, well, that's kind of, life does not give us poignant deaths. He didn't throw his hat up. The gun pulled it up. Because
The death scene was confusing to me, too.
the guy tried to save him by reversing the gun that pushes things.
Oh yeah, and
to
he's
make
like, if I'd
pull,
done it 5 seconds
and
earlier.
it pulled his hat up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so sad. That was a good little scene where he reversed the gun to make it save him, and it just got there in time to.
I mean,
get the.
There were several interesting action sequences in the book.
Oh, for sure.
That one was good. I liked when Margot Gellhorn turned into a gunslinger.
Oh, me too.
She was
Oh
great.
yeah, when he was like, "You're a bitch," she was like, "I sure am."
Yeah, it was
Thank
great.
you.
Princess Leia, when she gets the gun, she's like, I'll take care of that.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And then I did like Dawn flying between the sides of the moon after it cracked and like getting out of the moon that way, like that in a ship called the Baba Yaga, which was just great.
I just thought of John Wick the entire time.
Yeah, like I mean that was kind of cool. The space battle, what we could see of it was kind of interesting. Like I don't know, there's a couple things I thought. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, it really takes the disaster space epic to a new level. So,
or A level,
or the first level.
Could have been good, Fritz.
first base,
Entry level space disaster.
Did y'all were y'all at all amused by the fact that we kept getting everybody's first and last name?
I didn't notice that.
I
Did
feel
you
like that
notice
was or we got no name at all. Fat woman, thin woman. I feel like that was for refresher purposes.
Probably. There were just so many people.
Some of my World War II books that I read, they do that. And every chapter starts with the location, the date, and the time. And I love it. As I get older, I'm like, tell me where I'm at.
I will never forget that her name is Margot Gellhorn. That will be
Paul Hagbolt.
and Paul Hagbolt. All right, let's move on. Feminist favorites, guys.
Part of the hunter talk to Margot. He says, Margot, I think killing those men brought you life. It awakened you, maybe.
She's like, yes, it did.
Yeah.
Yes, it did, in fact.
My one that I did earlier was also from that same passage, and I have an addendum also from that same passage where he's like, well, if you want to have sex with me, we should still at least cuddle up just to keep warm. And she goes, wrap your blanket around you. I don't need any heater.
I kind of liked Rama Joan was one of the saucer student characters, and I kind of liked her little spiel about how basically she knew she would have always been better off if she had never gotten married, but she did get married, and so here she is now, like doing all these things. But it was like, yeah, sometimes it's better to not get married, Rama Joan.
This book was obsessed with the fact that she was wearing
Mannish. She was mannish.
And a turban. Like the first couple of pages is like, it's Turban was her name.
When they realized she was wearing a tuxedo and she was a woman, Margot turns to Paul. She goes, "It's a woman in trousers."
Even so, in the 1980s, there was a movie called Just One of the Guys where a girl dresses up as a boy to go to high school, and no one catches on. It's like she's just wearing a long.
It's giving Mulan.
I know, but
She
it's
shows
like,
up to fight in a battle and nobody knows she's a girl.
sometimes for people, that's all it takes. It's like, well, a woman could never wear a tuxedo.
Would that it were so easy in the apocalypse.
Yep.
Give me a tuxedo in the apocalypse so I can be
And not
incognito.
a Janelle Monáe tuxedo.
I mean, Rama Joan was right from the beginning, too. She's like, not everybody who comes from space is going to be nice to us. And they were like, whatever, Rama Joan. And then
That's true.
I don't know. She was kind of great.
That reminded me of the second book in the Three Body Problem series, The Dark Forest. Basically, it's like, it's fucking dangerous out there. It's a dark forest and everyone's trying to get you.
Everybody else thought they were going to be their best friends. But she was very belt and suspenders, you know?
Yeah.
Very notary public. All right, misogynist moments.
I couldn't find one specific one. So many.
I think mine was when General Spike threatens Colonel Mabel with rape. He's like, whether you like it or not, this is what we're doing. And she just is like, yes.
Fritz always walks that back because there's a couple times where there's a threat of rape and then the man is like, I wouldn't really. And that happens in that scene too. And I'm like, Fritz, it would be better if they just didn't do that.
You don't have to. Like, you could still have her have sex with him. That's fine.
He could be like, hey, I know you're not that into me, but we're about to die. Do you want to just, and she'd be like, yeah, we're about to die. Let's just do it. You didn't have to have the threat of rape and then walk it back.
And then, I don't know. I just didn't. I didn't think that made sense for who she was or anything that had come before. And like, it just was weird to me.
Even on the threat of death, there's like 3 men I'd want to have sex with.
I just didn't see her.
I'd be like, I'll see you later.
They literally hated each other the whole book. And then like, suddenly she's just like, I'm a lesbian and I'm going to have sex with you. Like that was her whole speech.
so
I don't know.
stupid.
I hated it so much.
Mine is when Hunter tells Margot that he had seen her before ever meeting her. He had seen her in a magazine with Dawn before Dawn went to space. And he said, I thought you looked disgustingly snooty and smirking, like you needed to be grabbed by life and manhandled.
Ugh.
And you know what that made me think of? James motherfucking Comey. There are some men who just can't stand to see a woman happy, can't stand to see a woman who's, maybe she's a little bit smug. They just got to knock her down a peg, which, of course, we all remember he did with the Hillary Clinton email investigation. And then, if you watch the Martha Stewart documentary, guess who had a fucking press conference about Martha Stewart's insider trading thing? James fucking
When
Comey.
he showed up in that
bitch-
documentary,
that bitch walked out.
I gasped out loud.
I was screaming. And it was
so mad.
all I thought about or talked about through the rest of the documentary. I was like, that motherfucker! And it was like another hour of documentary. And Kevin didn't even really get to watch it because I was just yelling about James Comey the whole time. So anyway, he's a real fucking Comey.
Yup.
And I think he will do Margot a favor when he goes back to his wife.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I hope he decides to go back to his wife. Margot needs to go be on her own as a gunslinger and do her
She
thing.
needs to go kill people and stuff
That's right.
and be happy.
Oh, please, let's have boob talk.
Yeah.
Let's do
We haven't had such
it.
boob talk in so
This
long.
is such good boob talk.
I think I remember Seth commenting that we were really going to have fun with the boob talk in this book.
I mean, hot popovers.
Hot pop.
It's so good.
It's so good.
I don't even know what a popover is.
Some sort of bun. Like some sort of
Your
baked.
mom has
it's
made pop. Your mom has a popover pan. I don't know why
It's
I
a
know
baked
that.
good.
But
So,
your
yeah.
mom has a pop.
Yeah, I mean, we make Yorkies, which are like little
Yorkshire-
muffins.
yes,
Yeah,
like-
so it's like a muffin.
You make it in like the same pan as a Yorkshire pudding. I
Interesting.
think it's like that tall kind of cylindrical. Yeah, that's a
And then I think the pastry pops over the top, which
Yes.
is why it's called a pop.
Yes, yes.
Oh, gotcha. I guess because I've never seen a boob that looks like that. So
No, boobs don't look like that.
What do you mean? That not cylindrical with a muffin top at the end?
Correct.
I don't know what boobs you've seen, but that checks out to me.
huh?
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. and I think in the same conversation, they're called just bakery goods.
Yeah.
Handle the bakery
She
goods
said,
with reverence.
Kindly handle the bakery goods with reverence.
I did like her attitude was so funny. She was just like, I'm just going to sit here and let him do the thing he wants to do. And then he's going to take me to where I want to go. And then when we get there, she's like, I made the Wanderer show up by how good I was at sex, I guess.
Yeah, I did not understand what Sally thought was happening.
That's why we need sex education in the schools, kids.
I think my other, well, I don't want to take them all. There's some good ones. Who wants to drop the next one?
Let's see. Sally's vanishing bra. What a time to be alive. He's trying to unbuckle her bra, and she's like, no, silly, beep boop, and it just disappears, I guess. It's like a vanishing bra TM, like it's capital vanish, capital bra.
Did you see the reference to the girl glove?
Mm-mm.
What you think that is?
That's where you put your hand before you do your gardening, and you're a girl, and the gloves are pink, and they cost $2 more than gloves that aren't pink
That's probably what it is.
because of the pink tax.
Girl gloves.
Where did it say girl gloves? I don't remember.
I'll have to look it up in a minute. The
What does it really mean?
well, let's look it up.
I don't remember this.
As
I did a
Amy
lot of
looks it up in her e-reader that has a pink cover.
Ooh, pink tax. I like pink. While I'm looking this up, I would like to throw out the other one that I found, which was that Tigerishka had 2 modest indigo-colored nipples.
Oh,
Excuse me, they're indigo ruddy nipples.
Oh, that is not what mine said.
Really?
Indigo-colored is what I had.
Mine said indigo ruddy.
Well,
And high in the green fur of her chest. Oh, did you guys have
have a modest
typos?
nipple?
oh,
Which
so many typos.
So a lot of times in mine, instead of cars, it said ears. So it was like
Oh, no, you're
miles
right.
of
Indigo ready. Sorry.
miles of ears stretched down the highway.
Mine had lots of like periods and then lowercase letters. It was
Mine it said ears for cars, and a lot of times it said fides for fires.
All we know about Girl Glove is that an alcoholic dude had been, or he had been alcoholically extemporizing because he doesn't know how to use an adverb. And he said, the sentence just says, the fragments had been full of horrid neologisms such as moondark and manshine, and to cap that, girl glove.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I would need more context.
That's what she's wearing before
That is the only context you get.
She's cutting her tomatoes.
girl gloves.
Girl gloves.
I thought it was like a euphemism for labia or something.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
I
also
think that's
I
what
also
Amy's
think it's a
getting at.
vagina.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Is that all the boobs? It seems like there were so many more.
Well,
Popovers really takes the cake.
Sally also said shortly thereafter, easy there, and for God's sake, don't tell me they're like big round loaves of good homemade bread Mama Lesher used to bake.
I'm just gonna do a quick search for breast.
Yeah.
Oh.
One was like turkey breast or something.
Oh, I forgot about this one. I can't remember. I think it's when Margot and Hunter have sex, and there's a flashlight on his chest, and while they're having sex, the flashlight light shines through her breasts.
Oh. It's fun to do with your fingers.
It was so great.
I have a ball banter.
Ooh.
The moon continued to swing through Earth's shadow as irrevocably as the spermatozoa lashing their tails in Jake Lesher's loins.
Oh, God.
Lashing their tails!
Swash, swash.
I think you're giving them a little too much agency.
We got a lot of backlit Tigerishka so that we knew exactly what her shape was at all times.
She's very slim.
Very slim. She got highlighted by the moon's glow at breast and hip at one point. Like,
It's funny that she has 2 nipples and not 8 like my cat.
2 modest nipples. Maybe that's why they're modest, because most cats have a lot. She only has
That's like
2.
8 boobs. That sounds great.
Oh, Paul's plain male desire for a thrillingly attractive she-being.
Any she being.
It doesn't matter what. Just a she-being. Males.
I like hearing men talk about male desire. It's like, no homo?
Did we get your penis prattle?
Yeah, you're looking in your book, so I'll read it again so you don't miss out.
Thank you.
prattle.
Is that right? I don't know.
I said ball banter, but I like penis. But I think what you're mixing up is pony prattle
Pony
and the Once Upon a Time segment Penis Parade.
Penis
which
Parade.
I think maybe
That's what it was.
from The Terror. The moon continued to swing through Earth's shadow as irrevocably as the spermatozoa lashing their tails in Jake Lesher's loins.
Right.
Lashing Lesher's loins. How's that?
Bless.
The poet.
Fantastical food.
Are we ready for the limerick?
Yay.
Okay. So this is the girl who's talking about her breakfast and what she's going to have for lunch on the train. And Richard writes a limerick about her in his head, which entertains him all the way to his destination. And honestly, I cannot blame him. There was a young girl of devises whose thoughts came in 2 standard sizes. While most fitted a spoon somewhere big as the moon, that space-struck young girl of devises. Devices! Most fitted a spoon. That is really good.
Yeah.
Because she's just talking about her food.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
She's talking about her food. So she's talking about her food and she's talking about the Wanderer. So some of her thoughts came in 2 standard sizes. Most fitted a spoon, because she's mostly talking about breakfast and lunch, but some were big as the moon.
Oh, I see.
Oh.
Thank you.
Come on, guys. This is poetry.
I didn't read it with my eyeballs. I listened to a guy with a slight Irish accent recite it, and I was just like, I'm just moving on.
It's so good.
Oh my God. There are also some protein pellets.
No, tiny protein cookies.
Thank you.
Finally the return. I've been waiting years for this. White spongy cubes.
Hey! White spongy cubes.
Most notoriously and well done, I think, in Left Hand of Darkness, when they have their little...
Gishy mishy.
Yep.
I just think of tofu cubes.
Yeah, it does sound like
Mainly.
tofu.
There were also pancakes and 100% maple syrup and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that they found on the school
Irradiated
bus.
milk.
And irradiated milk, which our women were like, no.
Yeah, that's straight out of Fallout right there.
It was great.
See, on Tigerishka's planet, they would drink the irradiated milk. They'd be like, we don't need a nanny state.
Mm-mm.
Stop looking out for my well-being.
I'm going to do my own research.
You cad. Do my own research. Looks like that earth is flat from here.
It is now.
Soap stuff?
Before Lori starts, this is the first time where the book presages and acknowledges its soap stuff. When Don and Paul meet in space and they say, this is like a bedroom farce.
Oh, yeah.
No shit.
Yeah, you guys both have my first one, which is that Don and Paul bump into each other in captivity in The Wanderer. It's like, hey!
These two besties?
They just happen to be the only 2 people from the entire planet.
The other one is when this book truly jumps the shark, which is when they encounter the fucking Black Dahlia killer on the road. Like, this girl's been they find a dead, tortured woman in the road for no reason. They're just like, oh, shit, a corpse. And then this guy's like, you're next. And then Doc's like, she looks like she's been killed in the manner of the Black Dahlia. And he was like, oh, my youth's finest work. And then they shoot him and kill him. And then they just keep caravanning along. And I was like, what?
See, if this was a 22 episode Buffy era TV show, that would have been like a Monster of the Week episode. But he decides to throw it into
a Monster of the Week paragraph.
Yeah.
A monster of the paragraph.
I wonder how old that man was supposed to be, because the Black Dahlia was in like the 30s.
30s or 40s, I think. Yeah.
He
And
said
this
of
is
his
supposed to
youth.
be the future.
So he could have been like, yeah, if it's 1964, so he could have been like in his 60s.
Yeah.
True.
What a weird thing to put in. Like,
It's so weird.
It was so weird.
so weird.
Oh, a woman's been murdered. Must be the Black Dahlia killer. And it is.
and not just murder, but like the way that she's killed is horrible.
Yeah, the Black Dahlia murder was bad.
Yeah, it's
It was real bad. Maybe Fritz was just really into the Black Dahlia mystery.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to put in 2 paragraphs. Can I? And they're like, okay. He's like, yes.
That'd be like us shoehorning in the Franklin expedition into a book we wrote about space.
Yeah. He wrote Black Dahlia fan fiction.
By the way, the Ministry of Time, that is really good. And science fiction also with the terror shoehorned in there.
Oh,
And,
That's right.
that will be on my Hugo nominating ballot.
Heck yeah.
And I hadn't even thought about it because I just forget. It's like Billy Eichner being like, for $1, what's a book you read last year? And I'm like, I don't know. But someone commented, and I can't remember who, was like, boy, wouldn't you guys have fun if it wins? And you got to, I think maybe it was Liz from Octothorpe was like, wouldn't you guys have fun with your episode if it wins? And I was like, we have to make sure it wins
Yeah.
so that we can do an episode on
Well,
it.
the good news is this is our podcast, and even if it doesn't win, we
That's
can
true.
still do an episode
I
on it.
know, but I want everybody to nominate and vote for it because it's good.
Oh,
I feel bad because I don't read a lot of new science fiction because I'm busy reading all the old science fiction.
I know. I've had that thought many times.
Yeah.
Like we have to do one of these recent winners so we can read something written in this century.
Yeah.
Did you like the book?
Not my least favorite book we've ever read.
Fascinating.
It kept my interest at times, but man, what a mess.
What was your least favorite book?
I have to think about it, but
Yeah.
Again, I like any book that I understand.
Okay, fair.
So yeah.
Yep, fair.
I did not like this book, but I think it was a good try.
It's interesting at least. It's something.
I do. And for the first 100 pages, I was like, this is not great literature, but this is like 60s wandering around checking out a weird thing, and I don't mind it. And so I almost thought it was fine.
I was actively upset that I had to read this book. I did not like this.
I felt that way the last
Yeah.
100
I wasn't
pages.
enjoying the last 3 hours.
Maybe it's because it ended so that I have a bad taste in my mouth about it.
I mean, it's not great. It's not good. It's hard to read at times, but it wasn't. It could have been a lot worse. It's not like reading Wind Up Girl, where I'm just like, oh,
I still hated Ringworld more.
interesting.
I thought about Ringworld a lot, and I thought I liked Ringworld better because he just picked a task and stuck with it, and I appreciated that. We're walking around the ring world. There's 4 of us or 3 of
And
us.
they rocked around that wing world.
And they just walked around that ring world. And then this book, I'd be like, who are you again? Like, there's so many characters. He can't remember who they are. He's just like, I don't know, the fat one.
Yeah, the guy in the boat. I don't know.
This one's still better than Ringworld to me because the women are better in this book.
Yeah, that is true. That is
I-
true.
Read somewhere in one of the reviews I was reading that Robert Charles Wilson, who wrote Spin, would have done a much better job with this, and I think that's entirely true.
Yep. And also, the cat character in Ringworld was better than the cat character in this book. Isn't that the one where Speaker?
Yeah,
Was
there's
it?
Zinti. Yeah.
I like Speaker.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, ladies?
I'll save mine for last.
I don't feel strongly about it. I said the saucer students are giving Fellowship of the Ring, but it literally is a War in the Stars. I shrug. I don't know.
I said Star Wars because that's no moon.
That's very good.
Haley's stretching.
All right.
Get limber.
That's no moon. That's good. That's good.
That's clever.
Get limber, Haley.
Much like the yellow and purple yin-yang of The Wanderer itself, the presence of a character named Sithwise, half Sith Lord, half Samwise Gamgee, is exactly half Lord of the Rings and half Star Wars.
Perfect.
I love it.
Sith-wise.
Your motion is granted.
Thank you. Sithwise Gamgee.
Okay. Anything else to say, lades? Oop. So, great. That's a book we read, and now we don't have to read it again.
No, and I can read whatever I want for 3 weeks.
The next thing we are going to do is the Vor game by our girl Lois.
Oh, it's been a minute since we've been with the Vor.
I'm pretty excited about that. I like Lois.
But before that is our second annual quiz show.
Yeah.
That's right. We're recording our second annual quiz show this Sunday.
Super Bowl
I
Sunday.
don't know when it'll come out for these people, but
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Depends on Kevin. That's up to Kevin.
at some point that will come out and it will be great.
But it'll probably be before the March episode. And then I don't know if we've announced the lineup on the show. Then April is Stand on Zanzibar and May is Double Star. And I have updated our website. So all of our upcoming
exciting.
books are on the website. I've added machine generated transcripts for all of last year's episodes. And I made them publicly editable because I did not edit them because it takes about 4 hours to edit an hour. So I made them publicly editable just in case someone wants to and finds that fun. Anybody who opens up the Google Doc can edit it. So if you want to, it's there. And if you do, thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Perfect.
Okay, well, bye.
Bye.
Bye. Don't read this.
Hugo girl.